Good morning, students. We are in video 6 of second module of research methodology and IPR. So in the last video, video 5, where we started module 2, which dealt with research design, process, documentation, and then the types. So we just had an overview of what exactly you mean by research design, and then the components inside that research design document, and what are the basic principles of writing a research design, how to write an effective research design. So that was we learnt in the last video of video 5, right? So in this video, basically going with the errors which are there in the research design. So before going to the errors, so first we will learn about the different research design. So first being the research design in case of exploratory research studies, first is that, and then the research design in case of descriptive and diagnostic research studies. First is the exploratory research studies. They are also termed as formulative research studies. The main purpose of such is that of formulating a problem or more precise investigation of developing the working hypothesis from an operational point of view. The major emphasis in such studies is on the discovery of ideas and insights. As such, the research design appropriate for such studies must be flexible enough to provide opportunity for considering different aspects of a problem under study. Inbuilt flexibility in research design is needed because the research problem, broadly defined initially, is transformed into one with more precise meaning in exploratory studies, which also includes your survey of concerning literature, which might be again your experience survey, analysis of simulations and all those, right? So the second being research design in case of descriptive and diagnostic research studies. So here what happens is they are concerned with describing the characteristics of a particular individual or of a group, whereas diagnostic research studies determine the frequency with which something occurs or its association with something else. The studies concerning whether certain variables are associated are examples of diagnostic research studies. And again here you will have to formulate the objectives, design the methods of data collection, select the sample, collect the data, processing, analyzing, interpretation, and also you are finally reporting the findings whatever has been derived from, right? So again these two are basic concepts of your research design. So next, moving on to errors affecting the research design document. It can be influenced by various errors or biases that are there or that might occur, and which might again affect the validity and reliability of the research study. So here are some common errors that can be noted down. First is the selection bias. Selection bias occurs when the sample or participants in the study are not representative of the target population. This can also happen due to non-random sampling techniques or self-selection bias. Researchers should strive to use appropriate sampling methods and ensure that the sample is representative to minimize the selection bias, right? So this is what has happened. Selection bias, see, whenever you don't go for random selection, if you go for random selection, it's like I just pick 10 students from section A, 10 from section B, and 10 from section C. So randomly I'm selecting. It might be any of the good students or bad students, right? If I'm not going for non-random, I particularly choose the favorite students of mine or students who are good, probably who give me good data, which might be again not be reliable, right? So again, when you go for non-random selection, at that point of time, selection biasing will be there. Next is the sampling error. So sampling error refers to the natural variability that occurs when a sample is used to estimate population characteristics. It can arise due to random chance and can affect the generalizability of the findings. Researchers should aim to minimize sampling errors by increasing sample size, using random sampling techniques, or by employing stratified sampling methods, because stratified is something wherein you go on creating a strata, that is different levels, which again will be helpful for you, right? Next is the measurement error. So measurement error occurs when the measurements or data collected are not accurate or precise. It can arise due to instrument or measurement tool limitations, or it might be also due to human error or through respondents biasing also it might happen. And again, researchers should use reliable and valid measurement tools, provide clear instructions to participants, and conduct pilot testing to identify and minimize measurement error. Next is non-responding bias. So non-response bias occurs when participants who do not respond to a survey or study have different characteristics or opinions compared to those who do not respond. This can also lead to biased results and affect the external validity of the study also. So researchers should aim for high response rates and analyze potential differences between respondents and non-respondents. So again, after this we have this recalling bias. So what do you mean by recalling bias? It occurs when participants inaccurately remember past events or experiences, which again leads to biased responses. It can be a limitation when you rely on the participants recalling magnitude or recalling frequency again, right? So this can also dampen your research study. So these were about the errors which are there in your research, right? So next, moving on to types of business research design. So basically we have two types, that is exploratory research design and conclusive research design, wherein again conclusive is subdivided into your descriptive research and causal or experimental research, whereas descriptive again has cross-sectional design and longitudinal design, whereas causal again have four types, that is we'll be reading later in the module. So first, starting with exploratory research design. So we are in video 6 of your module 2 of RM and IPR, right? So exploratory research, what happens in this? It is a methodology approach that investigates research questions which do not have previously been studied in depth. So exploratory is something, it's like you are qualitatively and primarily you are dealing with the nature. Like main purpose is that you formulate a problem for more precise investigation or of developing the working hypothesis from an operation, right? So that is what your exploratory serves as. So it serves a purpose as well regarding the area of investigation can also be known, and hypothesis for the research may be required. It is also known as a formulative research or interpretative research or grounded theory approach, because you don't have much more supporting documents or supporting kind of theory for that, wherein you are going to put up some new points for your research work. For example, your university dining hall is considering adding a vegan version of its meal to its daily menu, something which has not been offered before. However, it is hesitant to do so because of the concern that the items will not be sufficiently popular. It might lead to wastage of food, right? So it is eco-conscious and will not add the items of this will increase the food waste, because they might think so. So as there is a lot of cost associated with developing the recipes, the plan will only proceed if there is concrete proof that the vegans will be successful, right? So consumers' attitude towards online grocery shops also can be taken as exploratory research study. So moving on to purpose, when you are studying any type of kind of research design, you will have to understand the disadvantages of those, where you can apply those, what's the purpose of those, what's the scope of that kind of research study, right? So coming to the purpose of your exploratory research. Purpose is to formulate a problem or defining the problem, identifying alternative courses of action, developing hypothesis, identifying and separating key variables, gaining insights for developing an approach to the problem, establishing priorities, appropriating any problem, so that you can find out the solution for that, right? What are the characteristics of your exploratory research study? Exploratory research is very flexible and versatile, and for data collection, structured forms are not used, and experimentation will not be used, and cost incurred will also be less, and so on, as you can see in the slide. These are the characteristics, and advantages and disadvantages you can just draw it from the characteristics itself, right? It can be very helpful in narrowing down the challenge or a problem that has not been previously attended to or studied, It can also serve as a great guide for future research, whether it might be your own research or if another researcher is carrying on with that particular research. And it is very flexible, and usually it is of low cost, right? Coming to the disadvantages, it lacks conclusive results because see, theoretically you are deriving at some results which might not come out with a definite plan or solution, right? And it can be biased also because you don't have any pre existing knowledge on that. So whatever the researcher says, that has to be accepted, and it is externally, it cannot be externally validized or generalized, and it is much more intensive, labor intensive, and major disadvantages, it provides the qualitative data, it cannot be quantitative, right? So that was about the exploratory research methods, and you have different research methods of collecting data or securing data through your exploratory research methods, being secondary resource analysis, comprehensive case method, expert opinion survey, and focus group discussion. So let us move on with this quickly. So secondary data analysis is nothing but which relates to your survey of literature or published or unpublished documents which might be available for their research purposes. So a researcher may review the literature with the purpose of framing hypothesis, or he may review hypothesis which has already been developed for further study by others to see their applicability, right? The sources of data can be bibliographies which are available on the topics, or it might be through journals, magazines, newspapers, reports, books, special catalogs, special guides, online on the internet, and it might be through digital data also. Coming to comprehensive case studies. So what happens over here? Analyzing and analyzing. So in this comprehensive case study, it is like you are analyzing a selected case sometimes which gives insight to the problem. And then, for example, a case study on Mumbai Dabbawalas which gives an insight to the problem of supply chain. Wherein at a larger view and larger dimension, you're going to solve the problem through the solution given by this. And next is the expert opinion or experience survey. So what happens in this is, you are going to take the review or expert survey from the person who is an expertise in that particular area or that particular region, right? So no question is required, and then you directly go with unstructured questions, and then but you need to inform him or her in prior that they have an interview schedule, or they're going to take this survey on behalf of research work for your end, right? So you're going to inform them in prior. And examples of these might be like you are approaching a group of housewives or bachelors for choice of ready to eat products because they are the well experts in that particular area, right? They know better what exactly or how exactly you have to deal with the products. And next, coming to focus group, which is another technique wherein you have a small number of individuals, probably 10 to 15, wherein they are continuously striving towards working out for a solution or for a different perspective or prospective for the product or issue which is there with that particular research area, right? Then so this was about the exploratory research and its type and the different methods involved in that. And next, coming to your conclusive research design. So what happens in this conclusive research design? It is meant to provide information that is useful in reaching conclusions or decision making. So basically it is quantitative. It is more likely to use statistical tests because you have to conclude with some quantitative numbers at the end, right? And again, conclusive research will also use larger samples whenever it is required. So in this type of studies, research objectives and data requirements need to be clearly defined, and the findings usually have specific uses. So again, you can divide your conclusive research into descriptive and causal research. Descriptive or statistical, causal or experimental, right? So again, coming to descriptive. So what exactly you mean by descriptive research? So it is to describe something, usually market characteristics or functions. It describes a population, situation or phenomena that is being studied. It can describe the characteristics of a group, such as customers and organizations and markets, etc. Right? So it's like it provides association between two variables like income and place of shopping, age, and preferences. It requires a clear specification of how, who, what, when, where, and how of the research are being carried out. And these are the reasons for which you conduct this kind of research. To describe the characteristics of relevant groups of it might be consumers, salespeople, organizations, to estimate the percentage of units in a specified population, to determine the perception of product characteristics, to determine the degree to which marketing variables are associated. And these are the examples of descriptive research. So first coming to comparison of student performance. So descriptive is you are describing the characteristics of that particular research area or variables being taken, right? So coming to the first example, an academic institution may wish to compare the performance of its junior high school students in English language and mathematics. This may be used to classify students based on two major groups, with one group going ahead to study while the other study courses in the arts and humanities field. So students who are more proficient in mathematics will be encouraged to go into those courses. Otherwise, they'll be encouraged with other courses, right? And in scientific classification also, it might be used for assessing human behavior. When you are studying human behavior, what you do, it will be based on the factors like observational factors or reactional factors, right? So a company which is willing to sell its target market needs to find the behavior of the consumers. They need to study the behavior, right? So that is what it does. So it shows the examples of that. Next, coming to characteristics of descriptive research. First is quantitativeness. Yes, it is you can quantify the data, whatever you have taken. You can use the statistical tools. Time and again, I'm telling you, you need to find out the differences between each and every research design methodology, the differences between them, the similarities between them, so that it helps you to have an insight of what are the different scope and applications of the different research methods. Probably you will be able to find out the best solution for your research study. So first is quantitativeness. You can quantify the data information and which can be used for statistical analysis or statistical purpose on a later date. Next is uncontrolled variable. It's like in descriptive research, researchers cannot control the variables. They do it in experimental research because you are doing it in a quantifiable way, right? Next is the basis for further research. Yes, absolutely. The results of descriptive research can be further analyzed and used in other research methods. It can also inform the next line of research, including the research method that can be used for their particular research. So these are the steps, like the process of how you carry out your descriptive research design process. First is formulating the objective for the study. In a descriptive study, the first step is to specify the objectives with sufficient precision to ensure that the data collected are relevant and it is up to the mark, or the specifications which meet the researcher. And then next is you need to design the methods of data collection. Then comes the question of selecting the methods by which the data are to be obtained. That is, techniques for collecting the information also can be devised. And then the third step being the selecting the sample. So what you do in selection of the sample, you are basically identifying, like most of the descriptive study, the researcher takes out samples and then makes statements about the population on the basis of the sample analysis. Like samples will be designed or specified, and then as you are collecting the data. To obtain the data free from, it is like you need to supervise closely the staff or the respondents from whom you are taking the data. Checks may be set up to ensure that the data collecting staff perform their duty honestly and without any prejudice. As data collected, they should be examined for completeness, comprehensibility, consistency, and reliability. And you need to process and analyze the data. So how do you do that? When you're processing the data, it's like it includes you coding it into different interview replies or observations. You're coding it. tabulating it and performing several statistical computations. And next is you are reporting the findings. So you have already processed, analyzed, interpreted it, then you are reporting. How do you report it? Through a long communication, right? Any mode of communication. It's like you are going to report, and then the layout of the report also as per the specifications which is required by the researcher. So this was how you carry out the descriptive study. So next is we'll be learning about the different types of descriptive studies. So for that we will start in the next video. So for this 6th video of RM, we are done with the descriptive study process alone. So thank you for listening.